Welcome to Podcast on TechNation. This is a series of podcasts focused specifically on the biomedical and HTM industry. Episodes will be added monthly. Listening to each episode is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. At the conclusion of this episode, you'll be able to access a survey that will appear under this episode's title. You'll be able to download your certificate once you submit the survey. Before we begin today's podcast, I'd like to invite you to our fall MD Expo. We'll be in New England from October the 8th to the 10th, so please visit mdexposhow.com for event details and registration information. Podcast on TechNation would like to thank our sponsor, Multi-Medical Systems. When you're in the business of protecting the health of patients, you don't have the time for malfunctioning medical equipment or dull surgical instruments. You need a reliable partner that can provide expert repair and planned maintenance to ensure you have a patient-ready equipment that meets or exceeds OEM guidelines and regulatory requirements. Multi-Medical Systems provides these crucial elements and others such as on-demand temporary biomedical staffing, endoscopy and surgical repairs, infusion pump preventative maintenance teams, and equipment sales. So for more information, please visit multimedicalsystems.com. In this episode, we are joined by Thomas Flaherty, HTM industry veteran and formerly of Sutter Health.
Welcome back to HTM Insider. So glad you're joining us again. My name is Sherelle. I'm with Multi-Medical Systems and your host. And today we have on Thomas Flaherty of Sutter Health. I'm sure you all know him. He's not a stranger to the industry. He's been around quite a long time and has so much experience. And so we're just so, pleased and excited and happy to have him on as a guest today. Thomas, with that said, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and our audience of HTM Insider?
Well, again, my name is Tom Flaherty, and I have recently just retired from Sutter Health. So actually last Friday was my last day working for Sutter Health. I did work for them as a regional service manager for 11 years. I'm originally from the Boston area, born and raised and spent the first 50 years or so of my life there. And I've been in the field of HTM for about 44 years. And I started out from the ground floor as an electrical safety technician. And I worked my way up to, I was corporate director for Caritas Christi Healthcare, which later became Stewart Healthcare. And then an opportunity came out here to come out to California 11 years ago, and I came out and just enjoyed it. And I love living in California these days.
Awesome. That's a great story. So over so many years of being in the field, we discussed before your philosophies on HTM. Can you go back to that electrical field service engineer days? And what was your philosophy back then?
Well, back then it was to get a job. The field was basically new back then. I don't know if everybody knows this, but the biomedical field was created by Ralph Nader back in the late 60s. So it's a relatively new field. And he testified in front of Congress that microshock was killing thousands of hospital patients a year. And so a big part of biomed back then was electrical safety. And we had to do it. It's a lot different today. The equipment is a lot different also. A lot of the equipment wasn't really manufactured. A lot of it was created in labs and things like that. So there was a level of, I guess you could call it danger to it. And so I was hired to ensure that the equipment was safe and that it wouldn't go ahead and introduce those electrical safety hazards into our patients. And that was back at Boston City Hospital.
If something broke, did you go fix it, or was that somebody else's responsibility?
There was, I had gone to a technical program, and it was actually for marine electronics. There wasn't a lot of biomed programs back in, and this was 1980. So I went through a program, and I was actually working. I was going to school, and I was working nights at Boston City Hospital, and this opportunity came up, and I had previously taken this electronics course. So I applied for it, and surprise, I got it. And it was, like I said, entry level. I didn't know anything about biomed. And they basically showed me the electrical safety analyzer, which was very primitive back then. And we had to do, believe it or not, quarterly electrical safety checks on every device in the hospital.
Really? So, quarterly, huh?
Yes. And this was before the advent of computers. There were no computers. So we had to, everything was paper driven. I actually had my own little diabold and was able to, maintain the medical records that way. But I had to basically test. That's all I did all day long was electrical safety on all the equipment in the hospital. And that, that slowly evolved into preventive maintenance as I learned the equipment.
And then was that still tracked by a sticker?
Yeah, absolutely. We put stickers on there. And it was part of, there was about 8 technicians at Boston City Hospital. And they did a lot of repairs and a lot of the maintenance on all the equipment. But I can tell you that a lot of it was repaired and maintained, especially the imaging equipment back then by the manufacturers at that point. So we evolved the program while I was there and started training and grew into pretty good biomedical electronic technicians.
When did you decide it was a career field? When did you change your mindset from getting a job to this is a great career and I want to stay in it and I want to make the most of it? When was that shift?
Well, I went back to school. I am a product of continuing education. I had been going to school, as I said, I was actually going for physical education, and I switched my major to electronics. And at that point, I think I was pretty well committed after I received my associate's degree. Also, the opportunities to go ahead and grow within the team at that time was available. Before I knew it, I was in the OR and I was working on anesthesia equipment within a year. So I saw the opportunities, and I was pretty well committed at that point. So it changed pretty quickly.
Is that where you found your why and where you wanted to be? And then how did you start to form that philosophy? I know you are a guy that's based on philosophies and you live by them. When did that start to evolve?
Well, I was pretty dedicated to being a biomedical engineer, and then I became a clinical engineer. Through, again, continuing education, I went through a lot of courses, and at that point, I was a break-fix guy. And then the opportunity came up to step up into a lead role, and that's, I think, when my philosophy started to really change. It really had to. So, and then one of my first jobs as a manager, I was given a book that changed my life. Not only, career, but personally. And that was the Zen. It's Zen and Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's a book by Robert Pirsig and it was written in the 70s. And I'm not exactly sure what year I was given the book, but I read that, and that really transformed me and changed my philosophy. And
it's called Zen and I?
Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. So I transitioned that to the Zen and Art of medical equipment maintenance. And I've used that philosophy for the last 20, 25 years. And it served me well. And I think it's made me a better teacher, better leader, better person, to be honest.
So tell us, what is it? What is the premise of the philosophy?
Well, I think everybody knows what Zen is, but everything is always changing. That's the first concept. So, getting rid of that resistance to change is a big thing. And I think the premise of the book is a great one, and it's trying to identify what quality is and providing quality in everyday life and everything you do, trying to define what that is. And as a service provider, trying to provide that quality to your customers, to the patients, and even in your home life to provide that quality time, effort to the people you love. And
that's so true.
Yeah.
So true. I know you've mentored a lot of biomeds over the years. How are you able to translate your philosophy and share it with them to help secure their success in the field?
Well, I think one of the things is to try to be positive, all the time, be positive. There's, work is hard, and like I said, it's always changing, and there's so much going on all the time, and today it's getting busier and busier and busier. It seems do less with more, but that's always been the mantra as far as I've been in this business. It seems, but trying to walk the talk is an important aspect of it. Giving you time and really listening, letting them be a part of the process and the decision making. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but what I always try to do is listen and learn. I told you I was part of continuing education. That hasn't stopped till today. Whether I'm not talking about specific courses at a college or anything, but listen and learn and hopefully contribute, some of the pearls or words of wisdom, and especially someone that's been around as long as me, the experience. So, and hopefully, I think I've done a pretty good job, and I think if you go back to all the people that I've worked with, that they'll say that I'm present. Another Zen philosophy: be present when I'm with them and when I'm talking with them, and when we're trying to get whatever the demands of the day are to get it done.
Do you feel like there's more demands today than there ever has been? And is that harder to implement that philosophy? Because I see it from an outside perspective, how the changes are occurring, especially with all the cybersecurity and the regulations that are coming down. Is it harder to, stay present compared to 10, 20 years ago and to still effectively care for patient safety and patient outcomes?
Yeah, and there's so much noise, and everything's instantaneous. I remember when I first got a beeper. That was a huge thing. The beeper would go off, and wow, you can get in touch with anybody immediately. But now it's not even that. You get, and I'm sure this goes for you, but it definitely went for me. I get hundreds of emails a day, whether it be a service request or a request from somebody for something. It's constant, and it's never ending. And we just at Sutter we adopted a new a new CMMS system that sends you texts and emails when someone puts in a service request. So it's instantaneous, and the expectation is that you respond instantaneous. People that sitting there tapping, they're waiting for your answer on their phone or on their text. Definitely more demanding, and this has always been a highly regulated field, and it even more so. So, with the cybersecurity, it added another layer. And now with artificial intelligence, there's another layer to be concerned with. I know I saw my first email come out from Sutter, and they might have sent them before, but I might have not received it. But it was on the etiquette of artificial intelligence now, and when you're using those new tools to go ahead and decipher stuff. It is helpful, but again, it also adds another layer, and yeah, it's more noise and more demands, and yeah, it's to answer your question, yes, it's much more demanding than it used to be. Absolutely.
Yeah. That
And
Zen.
there are more tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And just the amount of tools and what's available to utilize is just somewhat overwhelming at times, and trying to make the right decision. I really want to go back to the Zen and now, because talking about it right now with you, Tom, one of my goals is to find more work-life balance, and that instantaneous connection, text messages, 2 cell phones that I carry, the computer, working in different time zones, and you need to be available, for myself, across the nation, instantaneously. So I'm going to pick up that book, because I've got to find more of that, right? And to be centered and be present in each aspect of my life personally. So you're really connecting with me today. Are you able to feel like now that you're retired, it's taken some of the weight off, or do you still feel connected, and do you feel that, I got to be busy, I got to be doing, something's going on? Or are you able to disconnect a little bit more now?
Well, it's so new to me. I think I'm probably going to need some more decompression, but I actually retired 2 years ago. So, and I've been working since, as a contractor for Sutter. So I'm keeping busy in the field. And the reason I said Friday was my last day is because I'm going on an extended vacation. I'm going back to Boston. But the only advice I would have for anybody, and I always tell everybody this, you got to make time for yourself. When you are off, when you take a vacation, you have to turn the phones off. You have to let the people that you answer to know that, hey, I'm off, I'm not going to be available. And I always made time in the day for myself. We mentioned Zen, and I don't want everybody to start rolling their eyes and stuff, but Zen is based on meditation, and I think it's an important health need of everybody is to be able, whether it be 15 minutes a day, to put aside for yourself to try to clear your mind of all the noise we've been talking about. And I know it's hard in our field, especially a lot of people. And as a manager, I was always on call. But I think part of it is to make suggestions to your leaders. And we did. We changed it so that we weren't always on call. We took turns being on call so that we could shut our phone off, and when we weren't on call, we were off, and to spend time with your family, which is probably the most important thing you'll ever do in your life. So you need to be present, and you need to really spend time and be around the ones who care for you and who you care for.
How would you advise a manager or leaders in an organization to have that conversation on how we need that work-life balance? I know it's across the nation, we're shorthanded in the field. there's expectations, and I know how dedicated our BMEDs are to providing patient care and patient safety. How would you start that conversation, or how would you advise someone to start that conversation with leadership?
Well, one of my ways that I got ready to go to work every week or every day was figure out what were the things I didn't want to do, the hard things. And I would say I have to do them first. So that's the first thing is committing yourself to going to have that conversation. And I think for the most part, our leaders, they suffer from the same demands as we all do too. And you might make a suggestion that they need to include themselves when we have this, and how can we go ahead and take that load off of them so that they can have that quality time, because they have to get away. It might not seem like it, especially to the biomeds, but the higher you go up, the more weight you carry, and the more emails you get, the more noise there is. So it's really important that our leaders have their time off, their quality time, so they can go ahead and have the ambition or the attitude that they need to go ahead and get us through these tough times, and also to understand what all their managers and also their biomeds need to go ahead and provide the highest quality of service that they can possibly. So, one of the most important things, and it's what I refer to as, being a linchpin for your organization. And that's something that I try to provide, and also mentor some of the people that I work with that were under me, is to understand how important having linchpins in the organization are. And basically to define a linchpin, and everybody should know what a linchpin is. It's just, it holds the team together. It holds the organization together. Every organization has linchpins, and they're basically indispensable to their organizations. They're indispensable to their teams. And you probably are thinking of a couple of people you work with that are like that. And the more linchpins you can create, the better and stronger and just a high quality your team, your organization is going to be.
I agree. If you are a biomed, or you're one of those linchpins, and you find that you're struggling with that work-life balance, you're struggling, to shut your phones off, how would you advise that person to go and talk to someone like yourself, and instead of getting burnout or leaving an organization, what are some steps that they can use, or some tools that you can suggest to have that conversation?
That's a great question, but I think it's going to be different for every individual. It's hard. It's especially if you're a linchpin, but it's hard these days for technician is out for any period of time. The concern is, well, who's going to back him up, especially if he is a linchpin or if he's important. We can talk about imaging. If you're a CT guy, goes out and, he's out for a week or 2 weeks or even longer, that puts the organization, in a tough position. You can't rely on manufacturers like you used to. They're having a harder time than the in-house organizations, it seems, to go ahead and maintain qualified people. But the only thing I can say is, as a manager, it's your job to go and understand how to go ahead and create a team and have backup plans or other people that you can rely on to go ahead and fill that void. First of all, everybody organization I know is trying to cross train as much as possible, trying to dissolve the lines between the biomed and the imaging engineer. And one of the ways of that is to go ahead and provide the training that's needed to help those biomeds, those good biomeds, and hopefully you can keep all your good, train them to be all good biomeds, but to go ahead and be able to fill in short term for those people that need to go ahead and get time off. I know I haven't answered your question fully, but it's not how I would go ahead and mentor or communicate with this and provide them tools with that is trying to be that type of manager that first of all creates that type of team, creates that type of plan where we do have contingencies in place for things like that, but then also to hammer home the importance of taking time off and regenerating, revitalizing, and when they're able to do that, they come back and they're better employees. And so, I guess that's the best you can do at this point.
Yeah, I think that's important, and creating that team is very important, and having that communication. I had interviewed Sean Malloy a while back, and he talked about building, sustainable biomeds in your shop. And I think that goes down to just communicating and meeting with them and getting to know them. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You should be meeting with all your team regularly. You should be talking to them daily, if you can. Obviously, that's not possible. And I know there's tools in place to go ahead where you have one-on-ones and all that, but it's more than just having a one-on-one and going over the numbers. It's really getting to know your employees. And in the old days, we used to go out to lunch a lot. You can't, there's all kinds of rules and we used to play golf, but you can still do that. It's kind of funny. I just was trying to do that, do some team building. I started going golfing once a week with some of the technicians. And it worked tremendously. We really developed a pretty good friendship. And I think that's so important for your team, that they support each other. And, because that's just another, I hate to say it, but it's a tool in your toolbox if you can rely on your teammates and some of the other biomeds around you in your organization to go ahead and step in and back you up. Because, we all need time off, but we all make mistakes. You learn from your mistakes, but you need someone to have you back when that happens and to step in and work as a team. So.
Yeah, I think that's magical to get to know your staff and to get to know them individually, because then you're more in tune and you can feel them when they're having the off days or tough times, and they're more comfortable to come to you and discuss, maybe what's going on, to get some guidance, personally and professionally. I think that's a great way to build a team. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And to build relationships around something outside work and something that may include some laughter and some fun, I think is always a plus as well.
I would tell you the other thing that I've learned, especially since I did retire, and is you need, sometimes you forget as a manager the day-to-day stresses of the biomed. So I think it should almost be a requirement that managers don't pack their tool bag, that they respond to some calls with their team. I know I always try to, I learned how to do MR. I was never an imaging engineer, but I changed CT tubes with my engineers. I did PMs on MRs. Even if it was after hours, whatever, and it took 4 hours. I didn't do it all the time. I did it once a while, just to give them the support that they needed to see what they're going through, and understand. The other thing is the equipment is changed, is always changing, and so to stay in tune with what the equipment is. I always maintain my CBET certification, just in case. But I think it's a good practice to still be able to turn a wrench and understand what your technicians are going through.
It's big to lead by example, and I know it's hard with so much being thrown at our HTM managers, coming from all sides. But I really admire you for that, staying in tune and staying in touch. And I know that I've known a lot of your biomeds and managers that have worked underneath you, and you are so well respected for that, Tom. So thank you for all you've given to the HTM industry. So now we're coming to the portion that we're closing out our podcast. We're just going to leave our listeners, which we call the WOW, word of wisdom or words of wisdom from the infamous Tom Flaherty. We want to hear what you can leave those listening to this podcast today, just to hold on to, and maybe write it on their chalkboard at work, or scribble it down on their notepad or on their phone, because I know that you have something special for us. So go ahead, Tom.
Okay, I'm just going to keep it simple. Be kind. Be kind to your fellow employees. Be kind to your customers. Be kind to the patients. Be kind to the people you love. And finally, be kind to yourself.
I love that, Tom. We kind of forget that sometime in this industry, is to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, we all make mistakes. We're all going to continue to make mistakes. Things happen, and it gets, the seat all the way up to the COO or something, and it can be very stressful or whatever. But you don't want to be up at 3:00 in the morning, reliving the moment over and over again. You gotta forgive yourself. You've got to just do better the next day. That's all.
That's awesome. Tom, thank you so much for coming on today.
Sure. My pleasure, really. Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, listeners, thanks for tuning in today. And if you listen through TechNation, this is worth 1 CE credit. Make sure you jump on there and listen. And if you need those CE credits, you can get them there. We're on any place that you listen to your favorite podcasts, including YouTube at HTM Insider TV. So join us at our next episode, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for a great presentation. If you enjoyed today's episode, you might enjoy our ongoing webinar series, Webinar Wednesday. You can find a calendar of upcoming live webinars, as well as an archive of on-demand webinars at webinarwednesday.live. To obtain your certificate for 1 CE credit from the ACI, please remember to complete and submit the survey located below the podcast title. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com.